Ever get the feeling that most AI tools out there, they're kind of like, well, just tools.
Yeah,
You tell them what to do, and they do it, but they never really seem to, like, learn or adapt to how you work.
right.
Like, they don't really get better over time, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So today we're diving into something totally different, something that's got everyone buzzing in the tech world. Agent Zero.
Definitely different.
This is not just another AI tool, it's a whole new approach.
It really is. And what's got people so excited about Agent Zero is that it's designed to be more than just, like you said, a passive tool.
Right.
It's built on this idea of organic AI, where the system's constantly learning and evolving based on how you interact with it.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Organic AI.
hmm
That sounds pretty high concept.
Yeah.
So for those of us who aren't, coding whizzes, break it down for us.
Okay, so picture this. Imagine you have this AI that's not just waiting for commands, but it's actually learning from every interaction, every task, almost like, well, it's like a real-world apprentice, right? They start with the basics, and as they work with a master craftsman,
Oh, I see.
they pick up on the nuances, the tricks of the trade, and they get better, more skilled over time. That's the essence of organic AI.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So how does Agent Zero actually make that happen? Like, what's going on under the hood?
So at its core, Agent Zero uses a system of tools. Think of these as building blocks of functionality, kind of like apps on your phone.
Okay.
These tools can be anything from like doing a quick Google search to something way more complex,
Like why?
like writing code or even running specific commands on your computer, all based on your instructions.
Whoa. So instead of just asking Agent Zero for information, I'm asking it to actually do things for me.
You got it. And the real magic here is how Agent Zero figures out how to use these tools based on what you tell it to do.
Okay, and that's where this whole system prompt thing comes in, right? I've heard that term thrown around.
Exactly. The system prompt is like giving Agent Zero a set of guidelines, a framework for how to approach tasks, almost like you're shaping its personality.
So it's not just about what it can do, it's about how it thinks.
You got it. And the
Yeah.
best part, this system prompt is totally customizable. You're not stuck with some pre-programmed set of limitations. You can tailor it to fit your specific needs, your workflow, your goals.
It's like giving your AI a personality makeover. But instead of clothes and haircuts, it's lines of code and instructions.
Exactly. And that level of customization, that's pretty groundbreaking in the world of AI.
So no more cookie cutter AI assistants. We're talking about something truly unique.
Precisely. And that's what makes Agent Zero so exciting.
Okay, so we've got this AI that's not just following orders. It's actually learning and adapting as it goes.
Right.
But to do that, it needs a way to remember, right? And not just like storing data, but remembering in a way that's useful, that actually helps it learn from experience.
Sure. Exactly. And that's where Agent Zero's memory system comes in.
Which, from what I've read, it's pretty next level stuff.
It really is. So you've got your typical AI. They might be able to access a ton of information, but they don't really remember in the way that we do.
Right. It's like they have a short-term memory problem or something.
Exactly. Agent Zero is different. It actually remembers past solutions, code it's written, even specific facts from previous conversations.
So it's building up this whole knowledge base of its own experiences, kind of like how we learn from our past mistakes and successes.
Precisely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Agent Zero doesn't just store this information randomly, it automatically organizes it into different categories.
Yeah. Like main solutions, instruments.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those terms in the documentation. It all sounded very, I don't know, sci-fi to me at first.
It does sound futuristic, but it's actually a really smart design choice.
So how does that work in practice? What's the advantage of having all those categories?
Okay, so let's say you're working on a task, right? And you
Yeah.
need a specific piece of code that you vaguely remember Agent Zero writing a few weeks ago.
Been there.
With this categorized memory system, Agent Zero can instantly search through its past solutions, find that code snippet, and use it again in this new context.
So it's not just remembering that it did something, it's understanding how that something might be useful later on.
Exactly. It's like having an assistant who never forgets anything and can instantly recall any detail from your work together, no matter how small.
No more repeating yourself endlessly to a forgetful AI. That's a huge win in my book.
Absolutely. And the more you use Agent Zero, the more it learns, the more it remembers, and the better it becomes at anticipating your needs and finding those connections between past work and present tasks.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about these instruments, because that's a term that I've seen pop up a lot, and honestly, I'm still a little fuzzy on what they actually are.
Sure. So instruments, they're like the secret sauce of Agent Zero. Think of them as custom tools that you can create to expand its capabilities, to teach it new tricks, essentially.
Okay, so it's like taking Agent Zero's existing skills and giving it a whole bunch of new ones tailored to what I need it to do.
Exactly. And the possibilities here are pretty much endless. For example, let's say you often find yourself needing to download YouTube videos as part of your work.
Right.
You could actually create an instrument for that specific task.
So instead of me having to go through the whole process manually or even just asking Agent Zero to find the video for me, I could tell it to download it using my custom tool.
Exactly. You'd basically build a little script, tell Agent Zero how to use it, and boom, new functionality unlocked. The creator even gave a specific example in one of the videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he built a really simple script, hooked it up to Agent Zero, and just like that, Agent Zero could download YouTube videos on command.
That's incredible. So not only is Agent Zero learning from its own experiences, but we can actually teach it to do new things by creating these instruments.
Exactly. And that's where things start to get really interesting because it's no longer just a one-way street.
Right. It's not just us telling Agent Zero what to do. It's this back and forth, this collaboration where we're both teaching and learning from each other.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole organic AI thing so compelling because it starts to feel like you're working with the AI, not just using it as a tool.
Like having a real partner in crime.
Hmm.
Except this partner happens to be a super intelligent AI.
Exactly.
Uh,
But of course, with all this talk of custom tools and constantly evolving AI, it's only natural to wonder about the potential downsides as well.
Right. Like what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all this sounds amazing, but
Yeah,
with great power comes great responsibility, right?
absolutely.
And we're talking about giving an AI a lot of freedom here.
A lot of freedom.
Access to our data, the ability to run code, build custom tools, and it just makes you wonder, are there any risks involved with all of this?
Totally, totally. And it's a question a lot of people are asking right now
Yeah.
because it's not just about Agent Zero itself, right? It's about where we're headed with AI in general.
Right. It's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities, but also a whole new world of potential problems.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the apprehension comes from because we're kind of in uncharted territory here, and it's natural to feel a bit uneasy about the unknown.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So how do we address that? Like, how do we make sure we're using this technology responsibly, ethically?
Right. So one thing that really struck me when I was digging into Agent Zero
Yeah.
was how much emphasis the creator put on transparency and user control.
Okay. So it's not just like, here's this powerful AI, go wild. There are safeguards in place.
Exactly. Like for starters, he strongly recommends running Agent Zero inside a secure environment like Docker.
Okay, Docker. Now, for those of us who aren't, tech wizards, what exactly is Docker?
Sure, so think of Docker like a virtual sandbox.
Okay.
It's a way to run software in this kind of isolated environment on your computer.
Oh, I see.
So even if something were to go wrong with an Agent Zero, it wouldn't directly affect your entire system. It's like an extra layer of protection.
Okay, so it limits any potential damage. That makes sense.
Exactly. It's all about mitigating those risks.
Okay, so we've got the whole Docker thing for safety.
Right.
But even then, how can we be sure that Agent Zero itself is being used ethically? You know what I mean?
Right, and that's where the transparency features come in.
Okay.
So with Agent Zero, you can actually see what it's doing step by step as it executes a task.
Okay, so no more black box AI. We can actually look under the hood and see what's going on.
Exactly. You can stop it at any time. You can even go in and edit the core instructions of its system prompt.
Right, because we talked about that earlier, how that's like giving Agent Zero its own set of guidelines.
Precisely. And you have access to those guidelines, so you're not just blindly trusting the AI, you're actively shaping its behavior.
So there's a lot of control in the user's hands, which is reassuring, especially when we're talking about this level of AI.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key takeaway here, right? Agent Zero is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, but it's not about handing over control. It's about collaboration. It's about working together to shape the future of this technology.
And that responsibility, that's on us, the users.
100%.
We have to make sure we're using this technology for good, that we're thinking about the ethical implications, that we're not just blindly trusting the machines to make all the decisions.
Couldn't agree more. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this moment in time.
Right? It's like we're on the cusp of something truly groundbreaking with AI, but it's up to us to decide what that future looks like.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility.
Well said. Well said. And on that note, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Agent Zero. It's Been a wild ride, folks, but we've covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground.
We talked about what Agent Zero is, how it works, why it matters, and most importantly, the ethical considerations that come with this kind of powerful AI.
The future of AI is in our hands, folks, so let's make sure we use it wisely.
Absolutely. And if you had to trust Agent Zero with any task, what would it be? Let us know. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking the important questions.